On this episode, I talk with the great Heather Wixson. She's the author of the Monsters, Makeup, and Effects series, and is also the co-author of In Search of Darkness, the book. I had a killer time talking with Heather, and I hope you enjoy this episode. After you're done with this episode, make sure you check out my fellow horsemen of the podcast apocalypse. Everything Went Black podcast, Into the Necrosphere, the Necromaniacs podcast, Spitball Media, Iblis Manifestations, and the Soul Knocks podcast. Also, don't forget to check out my Horror Wolf 666 podcast T Public store for any kind of Horror Wolf 666 merch. Check that store out. Got some really cool designs up there by Matt Prizzo, and also I have some cool stuff up there from Chrome Noir. So check that out. And if you enjoy this episode, make sure to leave a rating on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to it at. And that definitely helps and goes a long way. So much appreciated. And I hope everybody enjoys this episode. And thanks so much for listening. It sucks having like neighbors right across the wall from you and stuff. And I'm a musician also, so I can't turn my amps up when you have neighbors, you know?
I get it. We've been in our same apartment now as of this month for, I can't even believe this, 13 years.
Wow.
And there's like a roadie dude who lives in our building. And we found out that like he's been living here since like the mid 90s. And we're like, oh my God, are we turning into Kenny? I was like, we can't be Kennys. So yeah, we actually, cause we just got back the other day from Vegas.
Oh, nice.
Cause we were kind of out there for like a extended vacation and a music festival. And honestly, like, I love LA, but it's so ridiculous to live here now. Just the cost alone is just insane. Like we have a big apartment, but it's shitty. And we spend like more than I've ever spent, like when I used to have a house and have a mortgage on our rent. And it's just like so ridiculous. And we were like in Vegas and stuff. And we were there for like 9 days. So we really got to like drive around and check out the different areas outside of like the strip and stuff. And I'm like, everything there was so much cheaper. Like groceries were cheaper. Gas was cheaper. The rents are cheaper for like big houses that are like 3 times the size of our apartment that cost less than we're paying to rent this place. So I'm like, I think we're going to take the summer to kind of like get some stuff in order. But like my job that I have right now, like we do sort of hybrid work. So we only go to the office a few days, but like, I'm going to give them the opportunity because we do have some people who kind of just like work from different areas of the country. Like we have a guy who's like based in New York and things like that. And I'm like, I'm going to tell him like, look, I'm thinking we're moving to Vegas in the fall. Like we can work something out, or I'm just going to go look for a new job. Cause it's just getting so ridiculous.
Yeah, that is crazy. I have a bunch of friends over in California and stuff, and they tell me the prices. And I've been over there before. I visited Oakland and San Francisco, and I remember how expensive the drinks and all were, like soda. I'm like, whoa, this is weird. And like people just tell me the horror stories, how expensive everything is there. And I'm in South Carolina, and right now South Carolina is like where I'm at specifically is like one of the number one spots to move to. So we have so many people coming in. It's driven up all the prices of everywhere. It's so expensive to live here now. It's insane. Like I think the like average median rate of rent and stuff here is like $2,000 a month for a small 1-bedroom if you're lucky. Yeah.
Oh my God, in South Carolina?
Yes, because I'm in Charleston, and Charleston is a huge tourist town. It is insane here, and they keep building and building and building. And like it's nuts. And we got really lucky with the house we're at now. Like we're paying a really, really good rent price on it, like super cheap. It's a big house. It's nice and stuff. But we got really lucky because, yeah, it's crazy down here. And same with groceries and all. It's the same in South Carolina right now because I have so many people moving here, so.
Wow. Yeah, I have a cousin who lives in outside of Charleston, and I think she actually just came up because my mom lives out in Virginia, and she drove up and was visiting with them, and she was telling me how like my cousin basically was telling her like the only reason that she could even really afford to live around there now is just because like when her mom passed, she just took over the house
Mm.
that she had, and she only has like 3 years left of payments on it. So if she had to like start over and go move somewhere else, she's like, I couldn't do it. It's ridiculous, honestly, how expensive everything's become around the country.
It is. Please take me back to the 90s.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I would even like, because I remember I bought my first townhouse because I'm a bit older. I bought my first townhouse in 2002,
Mm.
and we paid 104 for
Oh,
it.
that's cheap. That's super
Yeah.
cheap. Holy crap.
And
Yeah.
I was out in the Chicago suburbs, but still. And
Hmm.
like, and then me and my ex, we moved into a couple different houses. Um, and I even looked because we had a house built in like 2006 or seven. Um, and we built that house, and it was expensive for me at the time. It was like 239, and
Hmm.
now they're charging like almost 400 for that house.
Wow. That is
So, and of course,
insane.
yeah, it's just I don't know how people can do it, like and like raising kids and all this and stuff with like the price of everything. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I have no idea. Me and my wife have two cats, and that's enough. Like no kids or nothing like that. Like I don't like we're selfish anyways. We like to go to horror conventions and metal shows and stuff. Like I don't, kids are cool and all if you like kids, but it's just not really our thing. And having the
Yeah.
cats is our kids is plenty enough. You know?
Yeah, we have two dogs, and that's pretty much where we're at too. Like, it was hard enough just going on vacation. Like, we have to go on vacation where we can take them because
Yeah.
they're both kind of weird. So I
Hmm.
can't really leave them with folks because like they both have different like medications, temperaments. Like my one dog is super emo. He'll poop on people because he gets nervous. My other dog, she's super rambunctious. She likes to steal paper towels, and she will kill you for it if she wants to. So
Hmm.
like I can't leave them with people. Like they're too much. So that's why we do Vegas every May, because it's like we can drive there, we can hang out, and just kind of bring them with. But I'm like, I couldn't even imagine trying to do it with kids too.
Yeah, that's crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Being an adult kind of sucks.
It does. Yeah. Man, like when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to grow up. I can do this and that. But shit, growing up
Oh,
does pretty much suck. Yeah, I can buy an 85-inch TV like we just did recently because I'm an adult, but still, everything else kind of sucks.
yeah. And then you're like, oh wow, then I have to like pay like bills and crap. That's no fun. They don't tell you
Yeah.
about that when you're younger.
No, it's all a scam.
It really is. It just sucks. I know. But that's the thing though. Like I love California. I love being here, but like I've been here now 15 years. My other half, he's been here almost 20. Um and we're both kind of like we're good. Like we love it, but we can move on and not feel weird about it.
Right.
So, like, we were joking, like, for example, like, oh, we're gonna miss like having not that we go very often, we're like, oh, we're gonna miss having beaches and stuff. And then meanwhile, the news is like, by the way, so Southern California people don't go to the beaches this weekend because every beach is tested positive for E. coli this Memorial Day weekend, so don't go
Yeah.
swimming. And you're like, oh, so what am I missing out on? Not much. And also, it's like being cold as hell here too. Like, it's like in the 60s. This is not.
What? Oh,
Yeah,
it's like
and
90 something
overcast.
degrees here right now.
Oh, I know. Like we were in Vegas and it was like in the 90s, and I was like, yes, give it to me. And then we come home, it's 30 degrees colder. And I was
Oh
like,
man.
okay, this is weird. So
Yeah, it's all topsy turvy, that's for sure.
yeah, it sure is.
Well, Heather, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. This is really cool.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Colors of the Dark podcast, and you were on there. I don't think it was the last episode. I think it was the episode before the last one they did and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's super cool, like everything you're talking about and stuff. And I was like, I got to get you on the podcast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I thought that was really nice of Rebecca and Elric to ask us to be on. And then the funny thing was like a few weeks later, because like we were really like promoting the book on our own. We don't have a budget, you know, to be totally honest, the In Search of Darkness people did nothing to really help us promote the book either, because they
Mm,
weren't making, extra cash off of it than they already got from the initial deal.
mm-hmm.
Um, so we were just trying to do our best to figure out best ways to like promote it. And so like Alric and Rebecca had us on, and then meanwhile the Fangoria salesperson like messages us, and she's just like, "Oh, if you're looking to promote your book, here's your thing, and like here's all the prices breakdowns for like to get you on different podcasts or to get you a mention in our newsletter." And we're like, "Yeah, we already were on the podcast for free, but thanks."
That was awesome. Yeah.
I
I,
was like,
I,
"Yeah, no, we're not paid for that. That's crazy."
yeah, that stuff can get really expensive. I've looked into that kind of stuff for when I was doing my full-time band, stuff or metal band and everything, and like paying for promotion can really get up there. It's like, whew, and I'm really what I used to do in the band, and it's the same thing I do now with the podcast, and I do everything with the podcast, but I'm really good at like social media and stuff. That was like my thing for the band and doing this. I'm really good with that, so I can kind of reach out there without having to like go through any kind of promotion company. I know they do help out in certain ways if you have the budget and all for it, but I try to do everything DIY.
Yeah, I'm a DIY person myself. Like, there's certain things you should always like pay for, but like just promotion and stuff, the way the internet is these days, like, I feel like if you approach it the right way, you can move mountains with very little.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. That's very true. Yeah, so many things you can do now with social media and the stuff we have available to us is pretty insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it was the Colors of the Dark is like it's one of my favorite podcasts. Like um Elwick and Becca, they're like always have fucking cool shit and always like cool movies I haven't seen before. So it was just really cool hearing your stuff on there, and I was like, that's fucking awesome. So yeah, I'm happy. Like once again, happy you're on this podcast. So it's really cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm always happy to chat with folks. So you
And
don't
I
have to get me
haven't
to like shut up.
I haven't got to read the PDF you sent over yet for Monsters Makeup and Effects, the new book that you're working on there or is already out. I haven't got to read that yet just because I've been in the middle of moving for like the past seems like 2 months between the packing and the actual moving. It's insane. So that's on my
No
list of
worries.
things. Yeah, I wanted to so bad. I'm like I didn't even have internet for like the past 2 or 3 weeks when we moved over here. No
Oh
internet
my
like that.
gosh.
Yeah, and I had to get a podcast out last weekend, so I figured out how to hotspot my laptop to my phone, which only has like I think 5 gigabytes of free Wi-Fi before it charges you like $20 or something. So I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do? But I made it work luckily, and we
Oh.
just got internet like 2 or 3 days ago. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I had to run a new line from like across the street and all this other shit because I never had like really good internet at this place, but we have like really good internet, so it's important.
Yeah, no, totally. That's too like I've actually had to like hotspot from home too, just because like I'm home Mondays and Fridays, and sometimes we have Spectrum out here, and like some days it's really good, and some days it's like, well, good luck doing or watching or existing on any sort of digital plane, because it's we're gonna shut your service, like do the service off and on like all day. So I've
Mm.
had to do the tethering of my phone to my computer, and it's a good thing to have in just in case. So glad you were able to kind of make it work very briefly at least.
Yeah, yeah, I was super bummed. I'm like, I gotta get shit out by Monday. Like, I have a schedule I keep. I don't want to like fucking miss episodes and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we made it work, and now we have our good internet. So I'm catching up on some movies I've missed for like the past 2 or 3 weeks, and there's a lot to catch up on. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, tell me about the new book, Monsters, Makeup, and Effects. I believe volume 1 and 2. That's the newest one, correct?
Yep, those are the most recent. I'm working on volume 3 right now.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there's actually gonna be 4 volumes in the series.
Mhm.
And yeah, this was like a process that started for me now, oh my gosh, like 8 years ago. Um, I used to do these series of like features called Stan Winston Week. And I've always loved special effects. They've just captured my like imagination at a very early age. The first thing I kind of remember introducing me to this is, and I apologize because I think my dogs are about to freak out because there's dogs
Oh,
outside freaking out.
no worries.
I'm holding her very, very cautiously. But one of the things that I discovered at a really young age was the making of documentary for Thriller.
Mm,
Because when I was a kid, Thriller was like the bar for music videos. And it was like so influential that they released like a VHS with the video on it, but they had like this hour-long making of. And that was when I saw like all of these artists behind the scenes, like doing all these different things to like bring these creatures to life. And I just had like, I don't know, in the back of my head, I kind of like sort of just figured these creatures just sort of existed.
mm.
So it was a big moment for me being very young and being like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. And and then like there's like the movie FX that came out years ago, which I always thought was really cool.
Oh yeah, love that
Um,
movie. It's a
oh
good
God,
one.
both of them are. I really love both of them actually.
Bit of a hidden
Um,
gem too, so that's a good
it,
one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it was like I think it was because I loved FX so much is the reason I like eventually watched Cocktail of all movies because I was like, ooh, Brian Brown. Um, Not many people say that. So yeah, and I just and like so I always wanted to like celebrate things that I genuinely loved about the genre. And so I started like Stan Winston was huge. Like I really thought when I was a kid first seeing Terminator, like robots were really going to take over the world. I mean, they kind of are a little bit here and there now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they weren't, too far off. They're not slaughtering us yet or anything, but give it time.
yeah, yeah.
But I was always so impressed at the work that Stan and his crew would do. And so I worked with like the Stan Winston studio to like celebrate different things like BTS photos and stories, and I would do interviews. And the last year that I did it, I remember um, I was talking to Howard Berger of all people, and then he was kind of like
Nice.
one of my first interviews for that series. And I started just asking him about Stan in general, like who he was, like his role, because like Stan was a huge mentor to Howard. Howard discovered Stan like when he was a kid, still in
Hmm.
school, and like so he would have to show Stan like his report cards to be able to come visit the shop. And as long
Oh
as he had the
wow.
report cards, he was okay to come in. So they became friends, and then eventually, Howard got into the business and stuff. But it was just interesting really hearing like all these different stories because I'd always read like, how do you make this? How do you do this? Or those kind of interviews, but I never really heard people talk about their lives. And it just kind of struck me where I was like, we have these people who, for many of us, they're really responsible for what we love about horror and science fiction and even to a certain degree other genres when they're doing more like subtle makeups and things like that. And I was like, these people should get a chance to kind of tell their stories. And so I was like, I set out originally with like 20 people in mind, and I was like, if I can get 20 people to talk to me, then I'm doing great. And I reached out to a lot of the folks that I'd sort of interviewed over the years. They were all like they were just gung ho about it, got on board. The first two people were actually Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr.
Nice.
Um, Thank you. And and then it all just sort of started to fall into place. And as I was doing more, I'm way too ambitious for my own good sometimes. And then I was like, oh, I should reach out to this person. It was really like making a list of like all my favorite creations and just trying to find the people behind them. And it just kind of kept snowballing and snowballing. And that original book that I put out, which was in late 2017, was called Monster Squad.
Oh
And
nice.
thanks. And like I didn't love that publisher, but I knew I had more stories to tell. And then eventually, um, originally I was supposed to be working with Fangoria when they were still doing book publishing. And then when that sort of fizzled out in 2020, like I moved over to my current publisher now. And we were, and I was talking to Michael, my publisher. He's like, well, how many interviews do you have now? And at this point I had like over 60 something. And
Wow, that's
he's
crazy.
like, yeah. And he's like, well, if you kind of want to keep pushing, like, let's do a 4-part series. And I had to put the series on hold when I was doing the In Search of Darkness book because it was just too much with like having a day job. I was also still finishing school on
Hmm.
top of all of that. Um, and just trying to have a little bit of like a normal life. Very little, I might add,
I
for
bet.
2 years. But it's just been like so amazing. And like getting to champion like all these people. And there's like a lot of like people like you'll see certain names and be like, oh, like, yeah, oh, them and them. And like, but I also wanted to talk to a lot of the folks that maybe aren't at the forefront of the conversation when it comes to special effects artists. Like to be honest, like Rick Baker put out this huge, beautiful 2-volume set celebrating his career. I feel like he did his work there. I didn't really go after him because I feel like he did the work already.
Yeah.
Um, so getting to talk to like somebody like Jim McPherson, who was like the designer behind Mant of all things, just because I love Matinee, um, and just getting to kind of like talk with all these different people. Like Rick Lazzarini is another one I reached out to honestly because I love John Candy's character Barf
Hmm.
from Spaceballs so much.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was just like, oh, I want to talk to the guy behind this. And then he had like the most amazing John Candy stories. Um, so really for me, it was just about being able to put the spotlight on this community in a completely different way than it had been done before. And it's been so fulfilling and so wonderful. And I've really gotten to meet and get to know a lot of really amazing folks. Like for one of the interviews I did that was in volume one was Tom Berman, and the Berman family has been part of the special effects industry like since the 40s. Like his dad worked on a lot of the classic Universal movies. His dad basically created the cane that you see in the original Wolfman movie.
Oh
Um,
nice.
and then Tom went on to work on like the original Planet of the Apes, and then was still working created some of the crazy things. I don't know if you ever watched Nip Tuck. Um,
I've seen a few episodes, and it seemed pretty interesting. I don't know if it was really my speed, but I hear it's pretty good. I should have probably kept on with it, but you know.
yeah, no, it definitely loses some steam in like the later seasons. But I remember watching the pilot slash first episode of the show because like it ended up like going through and stuff, and it was honestly because of Tom and his wife's Barry's work on the show that basically convinced FX to pull the trigger and give it a green light because there's like this really crazy surgery scene that was
Hmm.
all sort of done in real time. And it was like them and like their crew basically working from underneath the table to do all these things in tandem with like the actors and everything. It's really incredible. Like, even if you don't love Nip Tuck, which nobody, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, you have to love everything I do. But like, there's that scene alone is so impressive.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just like, getting to see like all these amazing things and hear these great stories. Like I got to actually hold prosthetics from the original Planet of the Apes.
Oh, that is so
When I
cool.
went up to the house, I actually like teared up, like because I just remember being a kid and being obsessed with that movie because I was just like, what? Like it just blew me away. So it's been a really wonderful journey, and I'm so excited. Like now that Search of Darkness is out there, and we're still sort of figuring out if we're going to do something else with that, like getting to go back and really get this series wrapped up. Um, it's just nice to kind of be back in that world a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, because I love these folks so much. I love what they've done. There's so many sacrifices that come from working creatively, which I'm sure doing
Oh
music
yeah.
and everything like that. And just being able to champion these folks means the world to me. Like it's honestly, even the style of the books, like I try to take myself out of it as much as possible because none of it is about me trying to
Hmm.
write to make myself sound smarter, or, sound like I'm some FX pundit. This is me really letting these people tell their stories.
That is, yeah, I just think that's super awesome. I mean, because I mean, the older we get, the more these heroes of ours kind of like pass on and stuff, and you creating this like these books that like forever keep them in that keep them relevant, keep them in that time period and stuff. Like let people know about them. I just think that's the coolest stuff. Like it's important.
Yeah, honestly, like um, we, I've had some losses during this process.
Mm,
I originally, when I first set out to do this, like I had been in talks with John Carl Beekler. Unfortunately, his health got really bad while I was working on the first book, and we just weren't able to connect. And sadly, he passed away a few years ago. Another person I was actually supposed to interview a few weeks before he unexpectedly passed away was John Vulich,
mm,
who he worked a lot with, like Steve Johnson and things like that, and also with Everett. Oh my gosh, Burrell. Sorry, they worked on like the Night of the Living Dead remake and things like that. That was another one that was kind of a blow. I remember being at Sundance. It was the year a Ghost Story was there because I just got out of Ghost Story and I was like a
mm.
super emotional wreck on the bus. And I got a text from one of my effects contacts, and they were like, "Did you hear about Matt?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, Matt who?" And they're like, "Matt Rose." And 4 months after we had talked, he passed away
Mm.
out of the blue. And another person um, who I was so glad to have been able to speak with him before he passed was Gianetto De Rossi, who was like a famous Italian effects guy
Mm.
um, who worked on like Zombie and High Tension and things like that. Um, yeah, so it's it's unfortunate. Like I love the history of Hollywood. I love the history of movie making. I think all aspects of it should be celebrated as much as possible. So I was glad in some small way if I was able to preserve any of that through these interviews.
Mm.
But yeah, well, none of us are getting any younger, and it sucks.
No, unfortunately, like I'm about to turn 39 next month, and to me, it's like I still feel like I'm 18. Like, how in the hell did I go from 18 to 39? It's the weirdest shit. Time is so strange.
It really is. I'm much older than that. I'm mid to late 40s, and I still am kind of like, wait, what? Like they had like last night was like the last drive-in. They had people on Twitter like posting like their high school senior photos
Oh yeah, the
because it was the
graduation thing. Yeah, I watched it, but I didn't do any live tweeting. I was too sleepy to do
yeah.
that.
I get it. I get it, especially on the East Coast. But it was funny because I was just like, wait, I was like, how is this photo like that? Like almost like 28 years ago now. Like, how does that happen? I don't understand. I was like, because I'm looking at this girl in this photo, and I was like, there's no way she's in her 40s now. Like, what? This is too weird. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I just went to a music festival. I think the median age is like 22. So
Uh-huh.
pretty much most of those kids that I'm there with, like, I could be their parent. But I don't feel like I'm in my 40s. My body does, but mentally, I don't. And I'm just like, this is so weird. Like, how does this happen? And I remember I was talking to some girl who was having a moment, with some influence, some things, and I was like, enjoy every moment of your youth, and I was like, just enjoy it, because I'm like, it's gonna be gone before you even know it. And she's looking at me. I was like, I don't mean to say that to scare you. I was like, but just trust me, because like I was in my 20s, and all of a sudden I wasn't, and it was weird. So yeah, that's why I'm all about like honestly just embracing life, taking risks, doing the things that you really genuinely love. Like this
Hmm.
career for me, like I mean, I was settled into a life of like, working in accounting, and had given up on writing because it was the smart thing to do. And then one day I woke up and I was like, this is not what I want. Like I need something more for my life. And that's what this career afforded me. And I feel so grateful for that. And I'm sure for you, music is probably like, doing podcast music and things like that, being able to keep yourself, sort of stimulated creatively on that side of things, I'm sure is like probably a godsend for you.
It really is. Like I have to be doing something, and like the podcast is like my biggest thing. I used to run the Horror Wolf 666 website. I don't I don't keep up with that anymore. 'Cause I was writing reviews, getting a lot of screeners in for a lot of independent stuff. I was doing a shit ton of reviews and all that stuff. And I was like, this is cool, but like what's the evolution of this and stuff? And I was like, well, podcasting's popular and stuff, and I got some friends that do the podcasting stuff, and they got me into this. And like, this is, I don't know, I just find it more rewarding doing the podcast. You can reach more people.
No, I totally get it. I totally get it.
So yeah, I do this now for to really let my artistic stuff out, and also like I said, the music. I do heavy metal, but as of right now, I'm mostly doing a project where it's like really dark, like synthy type stuff, which was inspired by my favorite movie, Mandy. So like Mandy really opened up a whole can of worms artistically for me, especially the soundtrack and everything. So I was like my project's called Abraxas Horn, and it's a total like tribute to fucking Mandy. So
Oh, that's amazing. And Johan Johansson's score. First of all, talk
oh,
about somebody gone way too soon.
I know.
Oh, that score was phenomenal. And I was such a huge fan of his work. I still can't believe like that he's been gone for almost, oh, it's been over 6 years, I think now. Like that to me just kind of blows my mind. Between like honestly, between Mandy and like I remember the Arrival score too is so good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like,
Mm.
uh,
And
what a loss.
Sicario, that theme song he does in
Oh
Sicario,
yeah.
like throughout the whole movie, is so dark. I think it's called The Beast. And it's like, holy shit, this it makes that movie, which is not a horror movie, but it has a lot of horrific things in it, but it kind of gives it that sinister like horror movie vibe throughout Sicario. That's a really good movie. I really dig that one, and that score really adds to it.
I completely forgot that he had done that. Yeah. No, yeah, it was phenomenal work.
Yeah, he was a big inspiration for getting into keyboards and stuff because I am a guitar player and I'm vocalist and stuff. Like doing keys and everything is totally new to me, but incredibly fun and rewarding. So I've already got one album out right now, and I'm working on the second one as we speak, which should be out this year. But yeah, it's really fun. It's a good avenue to go down.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's cool to like challenge yourself in new ways too.
It is, yeah, because that's like waters I've never swam before. Like I make riffs and stuff with my guitar. I don't do it on a damn like a Kai keyboard, synth and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm doing it, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. We just did a rewatch of Mandy. It was probably my I say at least 30th time watching Mandy, but my wife's never seen Mandy, and I've been talking about Mandy forever now since I first saw it. She's never watched it with me, so to break in the new 85-inch TV we just got, we watched Mandy on there, and she liked it, so that was cool. I'm like, she's either gonna really hate it or she's gonna like it, love it, or somewhere in between there. But she actually really liked it, so I'm like, that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing Mandy at it was the Sundance Midnighter premiere. And I had been like I I think I drove in that day and then had to like drop my stuff at the hotel and then went like straight over to get my badge and had to go to the screening. So it was like already a long, long, long day for me.
Hmm.
And I was almost delirious when I was watching that movie, but it
Uh,
fit so
yeah,
perfectly. And I just remember like I just felt like I'd like been like totally like blown away by the end. Like I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah, so I'm always happy. I know like Mandy had like this really fun, like sort of like push when it first came out. And then sometimes I feel like movies kind of get like lost in the shuffle so much because there's just so much out there.
yeah,
So I'm always happy to hear like when a movie like still like 6 years later, like people are still like, oh my God, this movie, like, yes, that's when you know you've made something that has like legs and it has a real cultural impact. I feel like in a few more years, there's gonna be this whole new resurgence for Mandy. Um,
hmm
even more like, and I'm excited by that. It was just so phenomenal. What a fantastic film. And I'm totally blanking on the actress's name, but I love how she's really been working steadily in horror. The one who is she's sort of the cult leader's like secondhand person.
Oh
She
yeah, what's her name? I can't. I'm looking it up now. I forgot, but
yeah,
yeah.
Owen something, but she was like, she took over the role of Sally Hardesty in the Texas Chainsaw movie that Netflix did a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to be in the movie The Watchers that's coming out in a few weeks.
Oh, that's cool. She has a certain look about her too. Like she's a that's like a timeless horror quality about her. You know, the way she looks, like she very
She's
compelling.
lived a life. She's lived
Yeah,
a life. Yeah. And it's all on her face, but in like such a wonderfully beautiful, profound way.
yeah. No, that she was definitely awesome in Mandy, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing her and Watchers and stuff too. So yeah, it's a timeless movie. I think like you said, it's gonna hold the test of time. Like people are gonna be watching this as like a cult underground favorite in like 20 years. That one's gonna pop up just because I think it has that quality about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And Panos has a new movie coming out. I want to say this year. I think it's this year, and I'm missing out on the name of it off the top of my head because it's called something else, and I think it changed to something else recently. But yeah, anything Panos Cosmatos does, I am down because I am a huge fan of Beyond the Black Rainbow as well. Like that's a fucking 10 out of 10. Like does no wrong type movie. So can't wait to see what else he
Yeah.
brings out.
Yeah. We don't, if nothing else, it's going to be a trip, you know, at
And
the very least.
oh yeah, literally. He did the that short on the Cabinets of Curiosities, Guillermo del Toro's like anthology on Netflix, and I thought his short was the best. I mean, but I'm biased because I'm a Panos fan, but still, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And it's also cool. One more Panos thing here, but his dad did one of my other favorite films, Cobra. I fucking love Cobra, and his
Oh
dad
my
was
gosh,
responsible
right?
for that.
I remember my friend Patrick, who runs F this movie, every year they do F this Movie Fest. And one year they did Cobra for one of their films. And he and his wife actually sent me like giant scissors to cut pizza with.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah.
And I still have them because I was like, it was just like one of the greatest gifts ever. I was like, yes, Cobra pizza scissors. Like, you cannot go wrong with that.
That movie is so fucking out there. Like it's so good and it's so like I don't know. It's like it's like in its own like little universe. Like who the fuck cuts your pizza with fucking scissors? And it's really bonkers and but it works so well, And it's still really really dark. I mean that whole like the cold aspect of it and stuff, and the death cult, all that shit's really dark. And I don't know. That's one of my favorite Sylvester Stallone movies as well. Like it's badass as Cobra, the perfect choice to play Cobra. So.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't even believe, like, as a kid, like, that I mean, I guess, like, growing up when I did, like, we just kind of went and saw everything. But I was like, being a kid and seeing that movie in theaters, I was like, wow, that's something. Because I don't know, there's a lot of parents these days who would take their kid to see Cobra. Um, so yeah, no, it's a fantastic film. I love that um he's getting to, like, I love that Panos is like, yeah, I'm sure there's like a tiny hint of nepotism, although his dad had such a very storied career, but still there's something to be said for the name value and stuff like that. But I love that he's really carved out his own niche
Hmm.
on his own terms, and he's not really trying to like replicate anything his dad did.
No, that's very true. And yeah, it's really cool though. Like just the talent in that family is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. But yeah, Mandy on a 85-inch is really awesome, by the way. To say I never got on the full screen like in the theater. I missed out on that, unfortunately. And that to me, that's supposed to be the way to see Mandy. You want a max volume, big ass fucking screen and everything like that. And it's more of it's something to see and feel because I think one of the members of the band's son contributed to the Mandy soundtrack with like the guitar stuff. I think towards the end, I think it's at the very end when the whole like church scene at the end and stuff, where it's like that fucking
Yeah.
really heavy, guitar driven stuff. That's one of the members of the band's son, and it's like I want to hear that on theater speakers, but unfortunately, I didn't get to hear that.
Though these days it's like, honestly, with the way theaters are, like, I never look, I'm a big, I love theater. I love going to movies, but I never fault anybody who just catches things at home because things have changed. Like when I was a kid, you
Hmm.
watched stuff on a tube TV, like with just whatever sound your TV had. These days you can really replicate the movie going experience at home, and you don't have to deal with people talking, people being on their phones, kids
Right.
running around. You know what I mean? So I get it. And you're from a visual standpoint, you're there. Like, an 85-inch screen at home is like, that's almost the same as like the perspective of sitting in a theater with a giant screen. So that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So really it's like, you're already doing better than most. I think ours is only like 60. So, but I
Dude,
think
I'm
it's
coming
60,
from.
but it's really like something else. Cause I think they put 60, but it's really like 55 and a half or something.
Yeah, yeah, they bullshit you out like a couple inches because our main TV before this was a 55-inch, and now that became our bedroom TV now. It's like, how in the hell was this our main TV? It's so small now. Like it takes up a corner of this new TV we have. It's like insane. And this TV seemed so big to me at the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, movie nights. I watched like you said, the new Joe Bob last night. I watched it on the new TV and stuff. Fucking awesome. I was like, oh, this is how Joe Bob should be watched.
And you got to
Yeah.
break it in with Graduation Day of all movies.
Yeah, great film. I haven't seen that one in years, so it's a good trauma film. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's a bit of a giallo, am I right? It feels like a bit of a giallo to me. Like, even
Yeah.
though
Like they've
it's
got
kind
a
of
straight
sorta.
razor. Yeah. They got
Yeah.
straight razor, black gloves, unknown killer with like a little bit of a psychotic breakdown. Yeah. It's definitely probably traumas first and maybe only gialli.
Yeah. I don't think they did one after that, but yeah, I was getting that feeling and stuff. So I'm a big fan of Joe Bob and Darcy and Last Drive, and I've been they really got me through like our times of like when COVID hit really hard and stuff, like the live tweeting that would go on with like the mutant family and stuff on Twitter. Like, that's some of the best shit ever, and it really like helped me get through that time of life, like all that craziness that was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a necessity. It was definitely a necessity.
Yeah, I'm so glad he is back and still doing really well. I like the whole every other week a movie type thing instead of just having like a double feature here and there. I kind of like, because it's more Joe Bob in the end. You get more of them. It's not like, oh, he's done. You got to wait for him to come back next season or a special. It's like, oh, it's more Joe Bob. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, like part of me was initially a little bummed about the double feature, but then I also realized for East Coast people, it was
Hmm.
probably a lot. They have to be up
It
that
was.
late. Like, yeah. And I was like, I think this just works out better for everybody. And you're right, being able to have like him consistently on like every other week throughout the year is so much better.
Yeah, because I wake up about 4:30 every morning, and I'm at work by like 6 or so, 6:30, and staying up for that second movie, it was almost impossible. There were sometimes I could do it, but like 90% of the time I was already passed out and have to recatch it on that Sunday when it re-aired. So
Yeah. I know lately we've just been so busy and stuff with like prepping for vacation, and like we had the signing for In Search of Darkness a few weeks ago and things like it just was like the last 4 weeks have been like super nuts. So like we actually have a few episodes to catch up on, but I'm so excited because I was like, yes, like I can just sit like I don't have to carve out half a day to do it. Where I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can carve out like 2.5 hours, and that's so much easier to manage.
oh yeah, yeah, totally. It's way easier to manage. Even though I think my favorite episode of The Last Drive-In of recent years was one of the really older ones when it first came out. It was or it first came back. It was the Phantasm, like 24-hour marathon. It was so fucking good. I think I made it through like three or four films, like, through the 24 hours. No, not three or four films. I think it was the first two when I passed out, but still finishing it up like that Sunday. That was so good. That was still my favorite episode of Joe Bob was the Phantasm one. Love Phantasm.
Yeah. It's funny, like as a kid, I didn't really gel with Phantasm. The tall man scared the shit out of me, but I was just
Hmm.
kind of like, all right. As an adult, oh my gosh, like I get it on such a different level. Where I'm like, oh my god, I was such a stupid kid. I was like, oh wow, like there's like actual like profundity to the things that Coscarelli is doing in that movie that like seems like it's just entertainment, but it's really tapping into like these like deep fears that we have as kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we don't really know how to adequately express. And I'm so glad, like as an adult, that I went back in. And I know some of the sequels get a little silly. And of course, we lose Mike, I think, in three. Is he, or no, is it two? I forget which one
Uh,
James LeGros is the lead in,
I
which I
want to
should
say
know.
we lost him in two. I think maybe I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I think it is because two is the one that like never streams.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was through Universal for some weird reason. Um, but yeah, that series, like Ravager really made me cry when I saw it.
Oh yeah.
Just to see that series wrap up the way that it did, like I cried. I remember, I think they showed it at South by one year because it was the same year I think as the 4K of Phantasm. Also, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say, and I just remember kind of like seeing those two very close in time together because I was like the 4K of Phantasm, and then or maybe it was 2K, I can't remember. But it doesn't matter. But seeing like the original and watching Ravager, I was just like I was emotional at the end of that.
Yeah, because it's like it's the end. Like there's no more tall man. I mean, yeah, Angus is gone and this and that. Like it's the end of that whole like awesome franchise. Like I said, some of the films are kind of weird, but they're weird in a good way. I like how they go like really, really off the walls and like three and four and stuff, where it's like fucking insanely weird just to be weird, but the effects and all are still like top notch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that one traumatized me as a kid. I think it was the first one that traumatized me as a kid because I'd be damn every time I was sick, like sore throat, headache, all that stuff, like the flu type stuff. Phantasm would be on the TV. It'd be like late at night. I'm already like feeling really horrible as a kid. I'm sick, and I'm still believing that monsters are real. I believe that till I was like at least 10. But like yeah, Phantasm would come with the tall man and the flying balls with the blade on there and stuff. Oh man, totally fucked me up.
Yeah, no, totally. I also think too, like it really makes like funeral like homes and like also like mausoleums really scary. I remember, even though I wasn't like a huge fan, but I remember my grandfather for some reason like decided he wanted to be in a mausoleum instead of being buried in the ground, which
Hmm.
was very strange because him and my grandmother had like bought plots like years and years and years before next to each other, and then decided in like his last few years, no, I'd rather be in the mausoleum. And I remember when we did like the final part of like his funeral procession inside the mausoleum at the cemetery, and I was like, this is freaky. Like I was just like waiting for like weird shit to start happening, and I was like, and I'm like, I know I'm the only, but like, I mean, yes, I'm distraught. My grandfather's gone. I mean, he was 93, so he had a really great life. And,
Hmm.
but it was just like, I'm sitting going, okay, where is the tall man? He's coming. I was like, none of these people know it, but I know it. Like, he's here. I don't even care if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's here. So let's get this going because I got to get the hell out of here because it was kind of freaky.
Yeah, man, the stuff that goes through our heads when we're kids and younger and everything is insane. Like I kind of miss that, like that feeling, like oh, there are vampires and werewolves out there. Like it just adds so much like mystique to the real world. Like becoming an adult, this shit ain't real. It's like so boring.
It is honestly like when I was a kid, I was totally convinced vampires are real, so much so that I actually created in my neighborhood my vampire hunting club.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and I would make people take a test to join the club. But it was like at the height of like Fright Night had just come out a few years prior. Lost Boys was just out in theater. Like so, this was like mid late 80s.
Hmm.
So Vampire Fever was like everywhere, and I was so obsessed. But I was like, yeah, vampires are real and they're coming for us, so we got to be ready. Um, so yeah, I had my very own vampire hunting club. I didn't mess with werewolves though, because they're gonna get you.
Yeah, those seem more like, feasible, like, oh, maybe they could exist. I remember being going out with my dad in the woods as a kid, like just thinking like it'd be like dark or whatever in the woods. I'm like, are there werewolves around here? And my dad was like, there's no such thing as werewolves, but I didn't believe him, I thought he was lying to me to try to, he didn't want me to get too scared or whatever. But I'm like,
Yeah,
man, they're totally plausible. I'm like, and I still leave like a 5% chance that all this shit is real. We've just been, we're adults now. We can't really see it for what it really is anymore. Like you can when you're a kid and you're like super innocent. So I leave a 5% chance that vampires and werewolves could be real. It's gonna make life a little bit more interesting, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for 100% that they're not, to be, I'm pretty sure they're not, but I don't know completely that they're not. So, I like the possibilities. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I want to talk to you about, I want to mention anyways is like I get a lot of I don't get a lot of hate, but I hear always there's a lot of hate about like 90s horror. And I think people are like a little bit wrong on that. There's so many good like
Yeah.
90s horror films, like it's insane. Like how do y'all say like the 90s weren't good for horror? Now the late 90s, that's a different story, but like early to mid 90s, there's a ton of good shit.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, I think especially one now that we, they're working on the In Search of Darkness 90s doc and things like that. So that'll probably help open a lot of people up to what was really going on in the genre at the time. Um, but yeah, like I mean, I think the difference is that it just wasn't horror wasn't maybe as prolific as it was during the 80s. Like the 80s, it was like if you go back and look at like all the box office breakdowns, like on any given weekend, there was almost like a horror movie opening up.
Hmm.
Like there was always something out there. And 90s was a little different in that capacity. But like that decade, was still turning out some of the most influential horror movies of all time. So for me, I've never been able to write off the 90s. It was just different, you know. Like I still remember the first time watching Candyman.
Oh, hell yeah.
And and again, it's like I get it, like the end of the 80s, and as somebody who had to write about some of the movies from 1989, like and maybe the quality wasn't quite there. Like, I mean, I love Shocker, but I know what Shocker is.
Hmm.
I have an appreciation for 976 Evil, but I know what that movie is. You kind of also had like sort of the law of diminishing returns in terms of like the franchises. Like, that was Nightmare. That was the same year as Nightmare 5, Halloween 5, uh, Friday 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, I think was that year.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, the horror definitely needed to find a way to reinvent itself, but I think there's so many different filmmakers out there that found ways to do that. And yeah, there was still plenty of sequels and stuff happening, but you can't you just can't write off the decade that gave us things like Candyman or gave us Scream or Event Horizon like in the
I
late
was about to say
90s.
Event Horizon. I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I mean that movie to me is still like I'm a huge, as the kids say, simp for Paul W.S. Anderson. And I would never be able to write him off because Event Horizon, I still remember like just renting that on a whim and being like, holy shit, what is
Yeah.
this? Like it felt wrong to watch that movie, but in all the right ways. And I mean Carpenter was still doing some interesting work. I mean, yeah, there's Village of the Damned, but there's also like In the Mouth of Madness. Like,
Oh, and
so
that's
you,
one of
you
my favorites. Oh, so good.
oh, such a good movie. Yeah, I regularly still wear my Do You Read Sutter Kane
Oh, nice.
t-shirt all the
Oh,
time.
that's badass. I need one of those.
Gosh, I feel like that was something that came out. Oh, you know what I got it? It was actually when one during Carpenter's first tour. He did
Oh,
like a
sweet.
bunch of different t-shirts, and that was one of the ones that I got was Do You Read Sutter Kane? So I was like, there's no
That's
way I'm not gonna leave here and get that shirt.
Bright Rags needs to get on that and do like a reissue of it or something. I'm all over that.
Yeah, I mean, his tour actually had like that first tour that he did had some really amazing t-shirt designs. Like there's a really cool one with Bob from the original Halloween that still gets a pretty good rotation in my wardrobe. My other half has the same shirt too, so we always have to make sure we don't wear the same shirt the same day because then we're weird. But that the Bob t-shirt was really fun. Oh gosh, there's a really good They Live t-shirt that they did as well.
Mhm.
That I love is that I still love too. So yeah, it'd be cool if Fright Rags can find a way because like I know they've been working with him with like the new album and stuff like that. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I wish they could figure out a way to like bring back the designs from that tour because there's some cool shit.
That'd be awesome. Maybe this podcast will like make that happen. Who knows? Like maybe to get around, like word gets out there, like there's a need for these shirts to come back because we'll totally buy them.
Yeah, Bennett Fright Rags, if you're listening, let's do this.
Yes, yeah, Ben's awesome. Let's do this, Ben. I might send him a message about that. Like, hey, we're talking about these shirts here.
You totally should.
Also, too, the '90s brought us another John Carpenter classic. In my opinion, this is kind of like debatable with some people, but it's one of my favorite vampire movies, and that's Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires. I fucking love that movie.
You know what's funny? I remember seeing it in theaters, and I didn't really gel with it at the time. And I think it was when the Blu-ray came out years ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this another go.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm so glad I did because there's some really cool shit going on. And I think also too because like vampire lore had been so thoroughly explored throughout the 80s. We got so many different takes on it between like Fright Night, Once Bitten, Lost Boys, Near Dark, which is one of my absolute all-time
Oh,
favorites.
same here. Yes.
And it's like, what else is there to do or say with vampires? And then I guess I just didn't appreciate it at the time. And to be totally honest, like I'm somebody who even loves Dracula 2000.
Hey, me too. That soundtrack is fucking great.
It is. And it was so funny because I remember like we're kind of obsessed with we call him Jerry Butler in our house.
uh,
But we love Gerard Butler. And I remember like my current person, we were sitting there and I was like, oh my God, we should totally watch Dracula 2000. I'm like, Jerry Butler is such a great Dracula. And he's like, wait, what? Because he'd never seen it. And I was like, yeah, he's Dracula. I was like, no, he's not. I was like, he is. And he was like, oh my God, no way. So we finally got to show it to him. And he was like, okay, that was fun. And I was like, I know. Like, and again, that was a movie, I think that was like in 99 or 2000. And like,
mhm.
I think people just kind of wrote it off. But I love that cast. I love that movie. Like you said, the soundtrack is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I never understand when people kind of just write off, sort of like more recent horrors because like, oh, they don't make them like they used to. Like, I get it. But at the same time, also like, you gotta be willing to like embrace the new stuff too. Cause that's the
Yeah.
only way the genre like grows.
And there's so much good stuff like recently, like in the past 20 years, like really the past 10 years, well, actually no 20 years now because you have to look at it that way. But yeah, like horror is like in a giant boom right now. And there's a ton of really good stuff, really unique stuff out there right now. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's I mean, I get it because like the 2000s weren't super great. I mean, there's always
No.
gems to be found. But we struggled for a few years, I think, as horror
Yeah,
fans.
definitely. Yes.
Um, but it's like I think the fact that we're kind of living in this like renaissance of horror these days, like we should be really grateful for that because it's you know all of this could go away so quickly, and you know we're being spoiled. Again, it's tough because we're getting so much of it,
Hmm.
between theatrical releases, um, straight to streaming stuff, and then also like TV. I don't remember a time when we had this much horror on television.
Exactly. And it's good. It's like fucking, theater good.
Yeah, like I mean, the fact that we have a Chucky TV show and it's amazing, like
Hmm.
we're not retreading anything from those films from a franchise that's now like over like 36 years old. The fact that it's still thriving the way that it is kind of blows my mind.
And it's making new fans for Chucky. I mean, this whole new generation of kids, like they're getting introduced to Chucky now, which is so fucking cool.
Yeah, if you would have told me out of like all of the icons to come like that came out during the 80s that Chucky would be the one that it would endure, um, I don't know that I would have believed it. And it's not to say that that's lessening the impact of Child's Play, but I really just thought it would have been probably Freddy,
Yeah.
because he was such a force. Like there just was nothing like Freddy Krueger in the 80s, even the 90s. I mean, I think New Nightmare for me is still probably my second favorite in the entire franchise,
Oh,
which I
it's
know
top
is,
notch. Yeah, so good.
yeah. And so, but if you would have told me 20 years ago that like it would be Chucky that would be sort of still carrying the mantle of like these iconic horror villains, well into the 2020s, I'd have been like, you're out of your mind. Like, no way.
Yeah, it's
But here we
insane.
are.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what, a little story about Chucky, Child's Play. Anyways, I think it was the first one. Yeah, the first one. I think I saw that when I was around, I would say 4 or 5, a long time ago, of course. But yeah, we had My Buddy dolls. I'm sure you remember those back in the day, the My Buddy dolls.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had one, and I had one with the I think it had red hair and looked pretty much like Chucky, because I'm pretty sure I think Chucky either inspired the My Buddy dolls or Chucky would maybe somewhat inspired from the My Buddy dolls, maybe. But anyways, I
He
had that
was,
My
yeah.
Buddy doll. It totally fucking freaked me out. Like Child's Play was like the scariest shit to me. And I've seen by the time I was like 6, I've seen Hellraiser and stuff because I was exposed to all these movies when I was really young from my aunt and my grandma and stuff. They let me watch all this shit that, warp my brain. But anyways, like Child's Play. Oh fuck, it fucked me up so bad for a very long time. Like I took my buddy doll and I fucking threw a whole shit ton of clothes on him and threw him in the closet and never touched him again after watching Child's Play. I hated that thing, and I had dreams of him coming out the closet to my buddy doll and trying to kill me. So yeah.
Yeah. The doll was definitely inspired by the My Buddy dolls, and pretty much Chucky killed the My Buddy dolls because
hmm
as soon as it came out, like basically their sales tanked. So effectively, they destroyed the My Buddy doll, which is kind of amazing in a lot of ways and kind of sad too. As I'm sure I forget who it was that was like the company behind it, but I'm sure that kind of sucked for them. But yeah, it was that was that was basically the beginning of the end. I mean, I couldn't afford like because they had the My Sister, like the My, oh, I forget what her because they had the girl doll
Yeah, yeah. I can't
too,
remember the
and I
name of that
forget
one.
what her name was. But I was more of a Cabbage Patch Kid, so thank God, they never did anything evil with Cabbage Patch Kids. I think that the scariest thing was probably just the Garbage Pail Kids
Yeah.
movie.
And they were creepy. That movie was fucking creepy, man. And it's still kind of creepy. Like the special effects and all for them were like, pretty fucked up.
Yeah, yeah. I think again I think that was John Carl Buechler's studio who did those. Which again, like, not a great movie, but boy, you cannot argue with those effects because those
Yeah.
characters were so incredible.
Yeah, they totally were. That's another. I would say it's a kind of a hidden gem that you must at least watch it once. Like I said, it's not a great movie, but just witness Garbage Pail Kids and all its weirdness. Man, especially now watching as an adult, like this is so fucking bizarre. And I watched this as a kid. It's crazy to think that.
We were living our best lives back then, I'll tell you what.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, they don't have it like we had it back then.
They do not. Sorry, kids.
Yeah, they don't have fucking. I don't think the Saturday morning cartoons come on for them anymore. None of that stuff. If they want to watch cartoons on a Saturday, they got to stream it from somewhere. That's horrible.
Yeah, like even like Cartoon Network, I think for years tried to sort of replicate the Saturday morning cartoon thing, and I just don't think it ever really clicked.
No, I don't think nobody went with it. So it sucks. But one thing I'm happy about is that they brought back the X-Men with X-Men, I think what 97 or whatever. So it's like a continuation of one of
Yeah.
my favorite fucking cartoons ever. So that's really cool.
I haven't been able to watch it just because we ended up canceling our Disney like account last year. But now I know there's like they're bundling it with like 8 different things net coming up
Yeah.
soon. So I'm like, I'm gonna get to it soon. But yeah, I used to love the X-Men cartoon so much. So I was really excited to hear it came back. And I've just been so like excited to read everybody's reactions to everything where I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're doing some good stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing a total rewatch of X-Men for like the 150th time because I would watch these shows over and over on reruns and stuff. But I'm doing a whole like run through it once again to get to the new 97. That one caught up with everything. So I'm pretty close to finishing up with the original series right now. But just watching that original series and like a giant dose of like nostalgia hitting you in the face is crazy.
Yeah, I did it a few years ago. I went and like sort of dove back into the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um, and that was such a trip. Like I was like, oh my gosh. Like I was suddenly like a kid again and like whew, like I was living large and I was like, oh, this is the good stuff. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
that
It's like I love that the movies have sort of brought back a different version of like animated turtles, but there
mhm.
was just something about like the original cartoons.
Yeah, the OG Turtles are still the best. Like the other stuff that's out for kids, I guess, is okay, but like the original artwork and everything for like the old school Turtles, like you just can't beat that. And then the toys that came along with it, I was a collector of the toys. Well, parents would buy me those, man would buy me a bunch of turtle toys, and I wish I would have kept all that stuff now because it'd be worth so much money. But like I had so much Ninja Turtle stuff, it was crazy.
Yeah, my other half, like half of our storage room is like a bunch of his toys from when he was a kid. So we have tubs of turtles, Transformers, He-Man, and then also like original wrestling figures.
Hmm.
And I keep telling him like I mean I love holding on to stuff because like I still have like my original Cabbage Patch Kids and like certain toys from when I was a kid. But at the same time I was like, what are we gonna do with all this stuff? Like
Right.
I almost feel like at this point we should sell off to collectors who are going to be able to enjoy them for a lot much more time, and just
Hmm.
really, because I'm like, they're just sitting in tubs in our storage room. Like, what? I mean, that's no life for a toy.
No, they should be displayed somewhere, like let some people enjoy them, I guess. And hopefully, if y'all did do that, you get a good bit of cash for them, which I think you would because that's a big market right now, the collectible toy
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. His mom saved like all those things. And then also, when he was little, like, would also buy and collect pretty much all of the Disney movies on VHS. So
Hmm.
we have like two tubs of those too, which I'm just
Oh,
like, and I'm like, we don't have kids, so I'm like, there's nothing really making us like hold on to them for that. And I know that that's like, especially these days when like physical media is kind of taking a back seat. I'm like, that would just be like to be able to like put those somewhere that they're going to get like actually used would be
hmm.
amazing.
Oh yeah, because Disney closed the vault on all that stuff. That's never ever going to be done again, especially VHS, of course. But there's never been any kind of like
Yeah.
fancy re-releases. That's done. So yeah, that's like gold right there, pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, because I was just like when we had because like his mom passed away in 2010, and then when we had to move like all this stuff out from her house in Florida, like just going through everything, I'm like, wait, I'm like, you still have all these Transformers, and he's like, yeah, she saved everything, and I was like, wow. He's like, it
Yeah.
wasn't me. He's like, because I'm not that organized, and I was like, holy crap. I was like, you were very fortunate because, yeah, like I said, I think I have like a couple Cabbage Patch Kids. I have a Popple from when I was a kid still. What's really cool is I still have my Etch a Sketch animator,
Oh,
which is
cool.
like my first real like gadgety type toy, and it
Hmm.
still works.
Oh, that's badass.
I tried it a few years ago, and I was like, well, there's no way this thing's gonna turn on, and it did. It
Wow.
still worked. So yeah, I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, me and my wife, we collect retro consoles and stuff. We have like most recent purchase was a really like pristine Nintendo 64, which I fucking love, and it takes me straight back to like early 2000s or late 1999 when it came out. I can't remember, but anyways, got those original PlayStations, like Super Nintendos, all that kind of stuff. Like it's nice to take a trip back in time when you have like cool retro games you can play and stuff with original like hardware. It's really cool.
Yeah, he's got a ton of it. Like you should talk to him because like honestly, like he saved all of his consoles. We have a power glove in our house.
Oh, that's badass. Yeah.
I
I never
remember
got
like
one of those.
I never even knew anybody who had one just because it was like a little bit I grew up like in a trailer park. So like I had friends who had Nintendos, but like nobody could really accessorize a lot.
Mhm.
Like we were just like, ooh, somebody got a Nintendo, yay. But like because we a few years ago we watched The Wizard. He's like, I'm gonna
Oh.
break out the power glove, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, like just to see like the history of it. Like he has something that was Sony that was like CD only. like DSO. Was that a thing? Is that the thing that it was called? I don't
I don't
remember.
know. I know there was a CDI. That was a system back in the day. I don't know who made that though. 3DO. There was a
Yeah.
3DO. Panasonic made that.
Oh, that's what it is. The 3DO. That's what it
Oh,
is.
they were super expensive when I was younger. I could never afford. My parents could never afford that for me. But yeah, they were like expensive as hell, and they didn't last long at all.
No, actually, what's crazy is like his uncle was a cop, so
Mhm.
like they actually somebody was like had like conflict like they had stolen a bunch from like a truck, and they went to give them back to the store, and like the people at the store were like thanking the cops, so they gave them a couple of those, and that's how he got his.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's basically like how he was able to do it. So he grew up with like a single mom also, so yeah. I just always thought that was funny. His uncles were like really ingrained in like the Stamford, Connecticut like community and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so like he had another uncle who would like regularly get like a bunch of free stuff from WWF at their warehouse all the
Oh
time.
cool.
Because I'd be like, I'm like, how on earth did you like? Again, we have so much crap. I'd be like, how do you have still the hacksaw Jim Duggan foam 2x4? And he was like,
Oh.
my uncle got it for me. And he has like the Brutus the Barber Beefcake like foam scissors and like Brett the Hitman Hart's like glasses that like they would sell for kids.
Yeah, I remember
It's
those. I had a pair.
ridiculous.
Yep.
They were so. I never got one. I was always jealous because like I went to like wrestling events when I was a kid, but like we just like the only thing like I ever got at a show that my mom could afford is I got a Hulkamania headband.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
man,
I never got that.
I wore the crap out of that thing. Like I actually had gotten into a fight because I wanted to wear it for my fifth grade pictures, and my mom was like, "Absolutely not." She was like, "You can wear it every other day of the year, just not for your school picture." And I was like, "Okay." I almost snuck it though. She actually took. I remember actually she took it to work with her that day. She's like, "You're not wearing this."
Oh wow.
I was like, "Okay." So yeah, it's kind of a bummer because I just don't feel like yeah, I get that the 80s were like we were so like marketed to as kids and we had to have everything. But
Hmm.
like these days I just kids don't really have that experience. Like I don't know what excites them anymore. And that's kind of a bummer. Like we were just really fortunate that we always had something to look forward to. And it was
Yeah,
always like whether it was movies or music or toys, like there was always something geared towards us. Where these days, I think we just force kids to grow up way too fast.
they do. It's scary. Like the social media, that it's like right there in front of them because every kid has a phone. I didn't get a phone until I was like 16. It was one of those like brick phones, and I didn't have any airtime on it. I wore it to look cool. You know, like I didn't get a computer till I was like 18 years old, I think maybe. And I bought it on my own. Yeah, I think it was about 18. But now kids like super young ages, they have all that like at their fingertips. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I love how we've turned into like, oh, kids, you have no idea how good we used to have it
Yeah.
conversation. But we did. I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, it sucks like being older, but honestly, like, I feel so fortunate to have grown up when I did because like I went from like popping my mom's 8 tracks into our stereo to also playing records to cassettes to CDs to digital. I ran this gamut of like media for music, television, like, you know, I don't know what else there is to like discover these days when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like streaming is here. Where does it go from there? Like, I don't know. Although I
Straight
do
to your
think,
brain.
oh yeah, right. Like we're gonna turn it like David Cronenberg movie or something like that, where we're just gonna like upload things into our brain and be like, oh yeah, I saw that movie. It was great. And
That's
you're
gonna
like,
be
yeah,
scary.
yeah, like Johnny Mnemonic type stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, it's although I think it's funny now that like all these streamers are starting to like band together and bundle up. Like you're like, oh, are you just basically recreating cable? Because that's what that was. And
Yeah,
you
that's
guys
all it's
pay.
turning into right now is cable, and it's expensive as hell because they're making monopolies now. Like everybody's coming together to make one giant service, and we're gonna charge you double. It's crazy.
It is ridiculous.
I have so many services. It was like, well, this is
Yeah.
on this one. I gotta have this one. And Shutter's always on. I never discontinue Shutter. Shutter's my favorite, but I like
Yeah.
Screenbox
Same
as
here.
well. Arrow has a really good one. The Arrow player is really fucking good. gotta have HBO, Netflix for my Seinfeld and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it
What I
gets to be a
love
lot.
about Yeah, what I love about Arrow is like their dedication to like doing a lot of like featurettes and things like that and showcasing those on their
Hmm.
service. Cause I wish like I love Shutter, love Shutter. Screenbox I've gotten into a little bit here and there. I had like a free trial like in the fall, and
Hmm.
honestly it was just a budget thing and I was like I just can't commit and was trying to
Right.
sort of streamline my streaming stuff. But I love Arrows, it's just more than movies, and I really appreciate that about them. And I don't think they get enough credit for it because they really do a great job of like curating a lot of really informative things that go along with the movies that they showcase on their service.
Hmm.
uh, so yeah, big fan of them too.
Yeah, I love Arrow. Arrow needs more love, that's for sure. I've got a lot of people on the Arrow app and everything. That, like you're saying, like there's so much like extra stuff they throw in there, and like even their whole presentation of the app itself is so like clean and like I don't know, it has a real like premium feel to it. Like they put a lot of effort into that.
Oh yeah, their interface is just, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I fucking love Arrow, and it's really cheap. I think it's like $6 a month, or it was at the time. It might have went up by now, but it's like that's nothing for what you get. Like so much stuff. Like you can be on the Arrow app for like a year and still probably not watch everything.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's where I go find all my super weird shit that I didn't know really existed. Is on the Arrow app because they have some like cool, like quirky, weird horror films or just like weird films in general that I want to check out. So.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah. I also wanted to make a recommendation. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I'm trying to like get the word out on the new Queen of the Damned series. Not Queen of the Damned, Interview with the Vampire series. Have you watched that?
I actually just started it last month, because my other half had never seen the movie, never
Hmm.
read the books, and so I was like, well, I can't just start him with the TV series because I was like, I was like, no, you should probably, you know, at least watch the movie first. I'm not gonna put you through the books yet. So I wanted to get him to watch that first. And like his like because he didn't really know what to expect. And he was like, oh my God, that was amazing. So we just started, I'm like 3 episodes into season one and
Hmm.
loving it.
It is
So I
so
was,
good, right?
yes, and I'm like, I'm so stoked that they were able to come back for a second season. Yeah, again, we're living in such a great time to be horror fans because we are being spoiled everywhere.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like we got that. I'm also following Evil, which Evil is on its very last season right now, is and it's ending, but still like fucking top tier goodness. And then you have like From. There's so much like good stuff on TV that's like movie quality good stuff, not like back in the day where like TV was TV. It's all like crossed each other now, where we have all this great stuff. It's insane.
Sorry, I had to take a sip really quick. I was getting a cough. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned From, because that show really surprised me because I went into it sort of because of the fact that like some of the producers had worked on Lost. You have Harold Perrineau, who like I absolutely adore,
Hmm.
and so I kind of thought I was going into like another Lost situation, and was absolutely like blown away by that first
Yes.
season.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
I still have some catching up to do on that as well. But it's one of those like shows I wish people would sort of catch on more to. And I
Hmm.
feel like it's going to be one of those shows like eventually when it finishes its run and people start to find it, they're going to be like, why didn't anybody talk about From? And I'll be like, well, some of us did. And nobody, there's so much nobody was listening. But that show is really great.
I think
Like,
the new season's coming back soon. I hope, anyways. It's like nobody really knows. Some people think it's coming back this year, but with the writer strike that went on and stuff, it kind of delayed things a bit. So I'm hoping this year it comes back because it's been a little while.
yeah, I think I saw Harold that was talking about it. I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is so fucking good. And it's got a lot of like Stephen King vibes too, which I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. I love the universe he's created and stuff, and I see a lot of Stephen King weirdness here.
Yeah, no, totally.
I can't wait for that to come back. And are you following Evil? Have you followed that one or
I haven't, and I've been meaning to, and it's just,
Evil
I
is so
just
good.
haven't. That's what everybody keeps saying. So that's one of those
Yeah.
like I want to start like this summer if I can. Just the last few years was like really hard for me to kind of keep up. Like I just honestly finished binging the last second part of the season for Chucky like 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago because
Wow.
I was so behind. I was like, okay, I'm like, we just got to push through and get this done because I'm like, I need one. I want to give them make sure people the powers that be know people are watching this even after the fact. It's not just an in the moment show and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Um, and so yeah, so I just we just finally finished binging like that last half of Chucky. So yeah, and then now we're also like I think we're going to be doing the last season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yes, I love that show. Yeah, it's another one we follow, and they're coming to an end. I think the new season's gonna be the very last season. So.
Yeah, I was reading when Harvey Guillen was talking about they did like a few weeks ago they did their final table read, and it made
Mhm.
me so sad. I was like, oh no. I was
It's
like, you
such
guys are
a
really
good,
doing
a
this,
feel
huh?
good show. It's like you can watch that and just let your troubles go away for a bit.
Yeah, I'm such a huge fan and I'm so glad. I never was honestly like I love the original movie so much and I didn't know what I was expecting from the TV show and I was like just because I love that original cast, I was like, well, there's no way that they're going to do anything that I'm going to care about as much as I care about that movie. And
Hmm.
then the show comes along and I was like, "Oh my God, I love these characters like so deeply." It's been an absolute joy. I love that FX gave it a shot. They really promoted it, they really supported it, and they really just kind of let it do its thing, instead of like ending it early or anything like that. Like it's been a real gift.
Yeah, it has been and like you said, I think the TV show surpassed the original movie, and I love the original movie. Like it's fucking great, but I think the TV show is like surpassed it just with the characters and everything like that. And I prefer it a little bit more than the movie.
I get it because I think also too we've really gotten to settle in with the TV characters more.
Hmm.
I mean, admittedly though, I'm never mad at when like original cast shows up. I remember when they did the Vampire Council episode, and like I mean, first of all, just because it was such a tribute to like vampire media from so many years as it was,
Hmm.
um, and also having like Tilda in there from Only Lovers Left Alive, I was like, oh my God, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Um, like it's been such a gift, but then also like getting the guys from the original movie in there, Taika and I'm totally blanking on the other guy's name. Yeah, I get it because like we've gotten to spend 5 years with these folks, you
Hmm.
know, and it's very different. It's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, and it's gonna be missed. I don't even want to like think about that last episode when it does come out. Like it's gonna be sad.
There's definitely gonna be tears shed in my house.
Yeah, my wife is a huge fan. I'm a huge fan, but she's even a huger fan than me. So I know she's gonna shed a tear for this one, like for sure. We even have like all the Funko Pops that came out for What We Do in Shadows. We found them one day at Barnes and Noble, like all
Oh
together, like
wow,
and nobody. It was only like one of each. We're like, oh shit, we got to get these. So we fucking scooped all those up.
that was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. So those are safely stored for right now until we can like put them up in a new place.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. Um, you said you had some book signings coming up and stuff like that, or has that already been done?
That was already done. We had a really
Okay,
great signing out here at Dark Delicacies in Burbank,
nice.
which if I would have told 8-year-old me what that day would have been like, she'd have been like, no way. Because I was really fortunate, like, because like writing a book is hard. Of course, I wanted to be able to celebrate it as one of the co-writers of the book, but also like for me, we're not writing this book without the efforts of so many people from the genre.
Hmm.
So I really wanted to make it into like this huge celebration of 80s horror. So I just started to kind of reach out to folks who I've gotten to know like over the years. Um, because of the stuff that I've done in my career. And we got to basically put together like our own little mini horror convention,
Nice.
which like I'm still like I can't even believe that really happened. But we were really fortunate. We were like we got to bring out like Joe Dante, Tom Holland, Kane Hodder came out as a surprise guest. Heather Langenkamp was another surprise guest.
Wow.
Barbara Crampton was another surprise guest. Kelly Maroney was there. I got to bring out the Kyoto brothers.
What?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember who else was there. Steve Johnson flaked on us at the last minute
Mm.
because he's a jerk. I can say that because we're friends, but I just felt really bad for the kid who bought his book while he was there, and then Steve wasn't even there to sign it.
Oh no.
That broke my heart legitimately.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just notoriously flaky and just was like I emailed him 2 days before. He's like, yeah, see you Saturday, and then like didn't show up.
Mm.
Just because he didn't feel like it, I guess. So like, because he was supposed to sit next to Kane Hodder, and so like on the Dell's always puts out like a piece of paper with the person's name, and like Kane wrote like because it said Steve Johnson, and Kane wrote it, and he was like is an asshole, and I was like, but Kane takes no crap. Like he was just like because Kane drove in from Vegas
Oh
to
wow.
be a part of this, and because he's friends with my publisher.
Hmm.
Um, so we didn't really promote him because sometimes he's like, yeah, I don't want to do the drive. Totally get it. But he was so gracious enough to come out. But he was like, I drove all the way out here and Steve couldn't even make it over from like the west side or wherever. He's like, come on. Um, he's like, that's bullshit. Um, which, in pure Kane fashion, I was like, yep, that makes total sense.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was just like this really wonderful day of getting to celebrate 80s horror and all these people who were a part of why I fell in love with the genre as a kid, and like
Hmm.
getting to see them being celebrated by all these folks showing up. And it was wonderful. It really was. And I'm like, you know, that day wasn't about me. It wasn't about Patrick who wrote the book with me. It really was about the other folks sitting at that table. It was really cool though because we did actually get to bring. I invited our editor to come out, just because Derek, who he's been my editor on all of my books because I trust him so intrinsically with like anything that I do, and he worked so hard on the book because he
Hmm.
fact checked everything. He did spelling checks. Like he really put a lot of work. He put as much work into it as we did.
Hmm.
And I really wanted to get a chance to like let him have his moment too. And so that was really cool. And actually, our publisher came out. He lives in Jersey, so he flew out for the weekend and got to like hang out with everybody. And it was such a good day. I still can't believe it actually happened, and we sold out. The store was packed. I've done other signings at Dark Delicacies, and I'm like, I've never had a sellout. Like, and so to see this do what it did, and also just to be able to have a really good event that benefited both, Dell and Sue at Dark Delicacies was just really great for me, because they do so much for our community, and I'm like, I want them to be able to get a little bit out of it too, in terms of from a financial standpoint, and they did.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, so that made me happy.
I mean, what a memory. I mean, you'll never forget that. That's a hell of a memory.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, like 8-year-old me was like, wait, you did a book signing and invited Heather Langenkamp to come out, and she was like, yeah, like no way, no way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my head would explode with all that, like all those like horror heroes there at one time. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly too, like I remember when I first moved here, like one of the first directors that I ran into, because I didn't quite understand like how the horror community worked out here, where I was like, I just didn't know if like you'd see people very often. But I remember going to a screening at the Arrow, and it was a double feature of Gremlins and Gremlins 2, and it was the work print of Gremlins. And in between the two movies, like Mick Garris did a Q&A with Joe Dante, and I like
Nice.
Gremlins was so huge for me as a kid. We loved the Burbs. Like the Howling was like such a huge, had such a huge impact on me as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And I remember like watching Joe leaving the theater as Gremlins 2 was starting. And like I left my purse, I was by myself, and I just ran out of that theater really quick because I was like, oh my God, it's Joe Dante, just to get a photo with him.
Yeah.
And here he was like 15 years later sitting at my signing, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe this. Like, that's so bananas to me. And I'm really glad he was supposed to be there because like he potentially was supposed to drop out because he's starting production on the Little Shop of Halloween Horrors.
Hmm.
Um, but thankfully, like they hadn't quite gone into pre-production yet to the extent where he would have had to miss it. But then, sadly we lost Roger like a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and him and Joe were so close. Um, and I know for Joe, he really wanted that movie to start before Roger was gone.
Mm.
So I think that's probably been sort of looming over him a little bit. Um, but yeah, it was a magical day. It really, really was.
Yeah, that's so killer. Like I said, I wouldn't even. I'd be so starstruck. It's crazy.
I'm
Like,
still
yeah,
starstruck. Like these are people like I could probably legitimately call most of them like friends. And I'm just like, no, no. Like I what? Barbara Crampton? Come on. Kelly Maroney, come on. Like, but yeah, I mean, I was so fortunate. I don't know how I ever got as lucky as I did. But I'm so grateful for that. I don't know what I did. Um, but I did something right, I guess. And I don't know how, but I still pinch myself. And it's been like almost 17 years of doing all this
wow.
stuff. Yeah.
No, I think that's fucking awesome and super inspirational too. Like, yeah, you're living the dream, literally. Like, of us like horror folk, you're living the dream, and it's so cool.
It's I will never understand how it all worked out the way it worked out in my life. Um I don't like I I will say this because I used to self-deprecate a lot. I know I'm a good writer. Um, but I think there's better writers out there. Do you know what I mean? And I think for
Yeah.
me, what I've always just tried to do is I've always just tried to come at anything that I've ever done from a place of passion. Because I don't even think you have to necessarily be the quote unquote best to leave an impact.
Hmm.
And so I never tried to be anything I wasn't. I was never trying to use, $2 words in all my reviews and trying to put things into the things that I wrote that weren't me because that's just, I can't do it.
Hmm.
So I only ever just set out to be me. And for some reason it worked. And that's like my advice to anybody out there, whether you're a writer, a podcaster, you're making short films, like never lose sight of what made you want to start doing this stuff in the first place. Because the minute you do, like you lose sort of an authenticity to your voice.
Hmm.
And people can tell, like honestly, like I mean, I've written reviews for movies that I haven't liked, but there was one instance where I wrote a really snarky review, which is not my style at all.
Right.
Um, but my former editor from years and years and years ago was like, "Oh no, we should totally do something really funny and blah blah blah." And I listened to that advice, and I wish I hadn't. Not that the film didn't deserve it, because I was so pissed at it.
Hmm.
um, I mean, I could. It was Joseph Kahn's Detention. I've
Okay. Yeah,
never
I
had,
know.
and I know the movie has its fans.
Hmm.
My experiences with seeing it at South by, and then also dealing with Joseph Kahn were so horrendous that I know that that sort of tainted me a little bit because we were seated in the same row as Dane Cook and his two very young dates
Ooh.
uh,
Ugh.
at the premiere,
Hmm.
who were constantly texting the entire movie, and the Alamo Drafthouse wouldn't do anything about it.
Ah.
Because of course he's talent, so they won't, don't want to ruffle feathers.
Hmm.
And they talked too, which was just really annoying. And then I remember during the Q&A after the screening, like Joseph Kahn basically like crapping all over horror movies in general. Um, which I was there with this guy Lawrence Raffel, who used to
Hmm.
work here net, and both of us were just looking at each other like, "Oh, we're gonna start a fight." Like he was so dismissive, and he was just like, "Yeah, the horror genre is primed to like make fun of and blah blah blah." And I was just like, oh. And I still interviewed him because I'm a professional, and I found ways to like try to engage with him, but it was just so dismissive towards the genre. And then I remember I did the review, and again, his response was kind of warranted, but it was also very hypocritical,
Mm-hmm.
because he basically lambasted my review on social media and said how he wouldn't he didn't accept any critiques from anybody who is an actual fan of the Saw franchise,
Mm-hmm.
which was like such bullshit to me because during South by Southwest that year was also the world premiere of Insidious.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him kissing James Wan and Lee Winnell's ass
Oh
during the
wow.
festival. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, like tripping over himself. And I was like, so wait, I'm lesser of a person because I like the Saw movies, but yet the guys who created Saw are cool. I don't get that. I don't
Right.
understand how that works. And I mean, he was right to blow back at the review because it really wasn't. It's not a review I'm proud of. I'm still disappointed in myself for letting somebody else sort of talk me into writing something that wasn't me. And I think that was a lesson learned for me where I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't set out to become a snarky, like, talk down to your audience type of writer. Like, I can only write from my viewpoint, and that's not my viewpoint. Like,
Right.
yeah, I can make jokes during conversations with friends and stuff, but that's not who I am when I'm actually trying to critique something. So it was definitely a big moment where I was like, okay, yeah, like Joseph Kahn's a dick, but also this isn't me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I could have given that movie a negative review in a way more thoughtful way. Um, and I've tried to go back and rewatch it. I just can't. And I like Josh Hutcherson a lot. I'm like, oh, and it has a time traveling bear, and I should be into it, and I'm just not. So, and again, the movie has its fans. I let them have it. It's all good, you know. But yeah, that was a lesson, very, very well sort of received by me a few years into my career, and I never made that mistake again. So
Right.
anybody out there, like, you know, I will always tell people like, oh, they're like, oh, I need to be writing for Fangoria and things like that. Look, Fangoria is amazing. It's the bar that we all aspire to. There's a lot of big outlets out there, Bloody Disgusting. They're all doing really great things for the genre. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, for me, the idea of just writing or creating is what really is important. And if you genuinely put the time and effort into it, people are going to find your work no matter where you are. Again, whether it's writing, making music, directing, never lose sight of that. Like, just remember why you're doing it, and always stay focused on that.
That's fucking great advice, and that is totally 100% true. Like, yeah, you got to have the passion for it, and people can tell when you don't. If you're phoning it in, they will know. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Heather, before we go, where can my listeners find your books where they can help support and get some awesome stuff from you?
Yeah. So for the In Search of Darkness book, that one is really interesting because it's a limited run of this book. Um, and so the only way to get the In Search of Darkness book is actually through the publisher's website, which is AM Inc. INK publishing.com. And if you click on Dark Ink, which is like their horror subsidiary, like of the brand, it's right at the top. They only printed like 1,500 copies of the book, and I think there's a little over 100 left. And once they're gone, they're gone.
Hmm.
So there is going to be a paperback edition that comes out. I'm hoping by the end of this year. I'm still kind of waiting to find out more about that.
Right.
Um, but that's basically where you find that. And then for Monsters, Makeup, and Effects, you can also find those over at AM Inc. Publishing's website. They might actually be a little cheaper than Amazon, but you can also find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, things like that. Um, I actually geeked out a little bit because they're on like the Target website of all places, where I was like, I just randomly Googled the book, like the books in general, and it was like places to buy. And I was like, wait, Target has this on their website? I was like, that is bananas. I was like, oh, I've made it. But then I realized, like, you can kind of throw anything on there now. So then I was like, oh, okay. I was like, because people can resell their stuff on there. So, but yeah, like, so that's where you can find those.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm sure my listeners would definitely be going to these websites and hopefully buying some of your stuff because they need to and support. Yeah, I really dig what you do, Heather. Like, fucking, you're awesome for the horror community. We need more people like you. So,
Oh
this,
gosh, there's
yeah.
like I again, it's one of those things where I sit there and I look back at my decision in 2007 to sort of follow this pursuit and start writing about horror. And I'm like, I don't know how I got to be as fortunate as I have in the last 17 years. I know a lot of it was hard work on my part. I gave up a lot to do this, and in most cases that meant money because it wasn't a good paying pursuit at all. I knew it was like not a job I was ever going to retire on or go buy a yacht or live comfortably. But honestly, the trade off of just being able to celebrate horror the way that I have over the years has really been the biggest gift for me. And getting to connect with so many people out there who love this stuff as much as I do and talk to so many great people like yourself. Like, I just, I can't believe it. Like, there's days where like going into my day job these days, and I'm just like, ugh, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's a photo I keep on my desk that my other half he framed for me. And he's like, you should put this on your desk at work because you should always remember who you really are. And it's like when I got to do like this little mini film festival, and I did like a bigger version of it the first year, and then we were actually at like a real theater, and then the second year we lost the theater, so we had to like adapt. And so I just did like three retro screenings, and the first night was The Fog, the second night was one of my all-time favorites, Vamp,
Oh, good
and
one.
then
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then the third night was Hellraiser.
Nice.
And I had like these like he put together this little photo collage where it's like me with John Carpenter, me with the folks from Vamp, and then me with Doug Bradley from Hellraiser. And he was just like, don't ever forget who you really are. And so on the days where I'm just like, oh, I'm tired of dealing with this corporate crap, I kind of look over and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, but I know who I really am. And it's cool. Like my career's really pivoted because I kind of retired from sort of the day-to-day horror journalism stuff, but I'm getting to do really cool stuff in other ways
Hmm.
where I've been able to work with like really amazing companies like Arrow, like Second Sights, writing essays. I can't say too much. I can tell you off the air, but I'm getting to curate special features on for the very first time ever
Nice.
with a label, and it's just like holy shit! I cannot even believe this is real. Um, and so it's interesting how it's evolved, and like getting to also focus on the books again. I'm just really grateful for that, and just being able to champion everything that I love about horror and the people behind it. Um, that's really what's always motivated me. And so, now that I've sort of stepped back a little bit, I'm always into like finding new writers out there, new podcasts, like everything, like to see who's out there doing the work now.
Mm.
Because if I inspired one person to do that, then my job in this industry community, whatever you want to call it, was all worth it because we need more of that.
Yes, we do, and that's very well said. And yeah, you're super inspiring. Like I said, like your inspiration's fucking killer, and yeah, and I would continue to support you, and I can't wait to see what else you come up with. Like, yeah, you're killing it. So yeah, fucking awesome.
Thank you. I try. It's tough sometimes, and I miss having like a social life or a regular sleep schedule on the weekends because I'm just doing like honestly when we're off here, like I have to go rewatch a movie to start working on an essay, and then I'm also watching another movie because I'm starting an audio essay for something. So like I don't really get a lot of weekends, which is why I very much needed the vacation I just had because like I did not open a computer for 10 days, and I can't even tell you how amazing that felt. Where I was like,
uh,
oh my God, is this what it's really like? I was like, can I just randomly like watch things for fun? What is this?
that's awesome. I appreciate you giving me your time too, being that you are as busy as you are and stuff. So it
Oh
means a
gosh,
lot. So
I just appreciate you wanting to speak with me. That's the thing. Like I had a couple people like, oh, you would come. I'm like, yes. I'm like, I will talk to everybody and anybody. I make time for everybody. That's always been my thing. My door's always been open. The one thing that like I wish and I want to see more of is being able to hold those doors open for people, to
Mhm.
bring them in, to allow them the space to make their voice heard, in whatever capacity that might be. Because I've always been somebody who will help support people in terms of like if new writers starting out, podcasters who are sort of newish to the scene, and they're like, "Oh, would you want like you wouldn't want to come and talk to us?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I would." I there's so many snobs out there who think certain things are beneath them. Nothing's beneath me because we're all in this together. Um, so really, you taking the time out of your weekend to talk to me means the world to me. So thank you.
Well, bet right back at you. Thank you. And like I said, like, yeah, you're awesome, and what you do is awesome, and yeah, the inspiration shall like hopefully like flourish to other like young talent and stuff, because of what you do. So really cool.
Well, thank you again.
And hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and enjoy some movies when you can that you're not working on. Hopefully you can catch up on some other things. But yeah.
Yeah, we've got Furiosa on Sunday, so I'm very
Oh,
excited.
nice. Yeah, I want to see that. That's going to be good. So
Yeah, we're gonna probably redo Fury Road like later tonight, so I'm very, very stoked for that.
nice. Well, Heather, have a good rest of your weekend, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Thank you so much, and really enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the new house. I
Yes,
hope everything goes well, and with the continual move in. And yeah, just enjoy everything.
definitely will. And if we will talk again soon, hopefully.
Yes, for sure.
Have a great weekend.
All right, thank you so much, Brandon. You too.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.